Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Creating in Fortnite. I am your host, Dan Hutnick, and today I have a few folks on to talk to us about mobile tools in UEFN. We have quite a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and get them introduced, starting with Derek. How you doing, Derek?
I'm Derek Diaz. Let's see. I'm a UX UI director at Epic. I've been working on in UI space for over 12 years at Epic. I love working on UI systems and making the tools to give developers the tools to make awesome stuff for players. We got a lot of awesome stuff to cover today. So that's me.
Yes, absolutely. And next up, we have Aaron. How are you doing, Aaron?
Hey, Arran. I'm a technical art director on Engine Labs. I have been on a lot of live streams in the past, but mainly on the Unreal side. So this is my first Fortnite focused one. So I'm going to be showing some cool stuff today.
Yes, absolutely. And next, we have Paul.
Hey everyone, hey Dan. Yeah, I'm Paul. I am the technical product manager for mobile at Epic. I'm a newer starter here. I've been here for a little under a year, about 9 months. And before working at Epic, I actually worked at Unity as a technical developer relations engineer, helping folks ship performant games on mobile, but also on other platforms as well. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Thanks for joining us. And last, but certainly not least, we have Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam. You may know me from many live streams, mostly on the Unreal side, but I did a fun Fortnite build long, which I really enjoyed. I am a senior tech designer at Epic. I've been here about 6 years now, and currently I work extensively with creators within the UEFN ecosystem to provide creative and technical guidance, help make the best games they can possibly make. Excited to be here.
Yes, yes. Very glad to have you here and very glad to talk about this. I know it's a topic that a lot of folks are very interested in. So, with that, designing for mobile in UEFN, let's give folks kind of like a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today.
Oh gosh, I could start a little bit here. Certainly mobile first genres, tycoon games, casual games, puzzle games. These are some of the most played types of game genres globally. And UEFN developers have been making games like this and some improvements to our tools to better enable developers to make these types of games is long overdue. So we're really excited to be going over a few features which will help improve making games for touchscreens, but also across all input devices. But generally, there's been a gap to do some of the critical types of gameplay experiences needed to create compelling mobile games. And some of these features help fill those gaps.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm definitely excited to dive into it. I know we have some content that we want to jump into. So if you want to go ahead and bring up your screen share, in the meantime,
Yes.
I will let folks know that if you are tuning in live and you have any questions for the team specifically about mobile tools in UEFN, please leave them in the chat with question in bracket followed by your question, and we will get to as many of them as we can throughout the show. Again, please keep in mind that this is a live stream specifically about designing for mobile in UEFN. If you have any other questions, we've been getting a lot of questions, obviously, about the future of Unreal and things like that, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. If you have any questions outside general ecosystem, any sort of thing like that, please head over to the EDC, the Epic Developer Community, where we have our forums, documentation, tutorials, the whole nine yards. So, with that, I think we can jump into the fun
I should be
demo
sharing my
side.
screen.
Perfect. And let's swap over to it.
There we go with the really cool swipe. So I am sharing just a really janky testing ground. So we're just gonna go look under the hood of some stuff. This is quite literally one of the projects that we've been using internally to test out a variety of features to help mobile experiences. And yeah, I'm kind of flying around a little bit here. These are just little areas to test different features, and we're going to go through them a little bit. I think it's valuable to peek under the hood and see so I want to talk about um, some of the like raw aspects of the features. That's what we'll do in this area. And then later, we're going to apply these principles and show some actual gameplay example demos that are actually pretty high quality already for just being little internal demos to show how these features and concepts come together to create compelling gameplay, specifically on touchscreen devices for mobile. Okay, so this is the editor, and this is just a UEFN project. Let me switch to the running gameplay session. All right, so first thing first. Okay, so there's different stations here that show different features. This little test area is allows us to bring up this menu. So I'm really showing under the hood here. This is a really gross debug menu. It's gross because I made it myself in about 2 seconds. And this allows us to an interface, just a standard UI, a UEFN UI interface, to add and remove input mapping contexts that we've added in recent releases and the associated input actions. So for example, I can add and remove the ranged weapon mapping, and I can add and I can subscribe and unsubscribe to the reload actions, the weapon primary, weapon secondary, or the traversal mapping, crouch and jump and sprint. These have been around for some time. Very new to the lineup here is a new mapping context called a virtual pointer, or actually it's called touch mapping. Internally, we call it virtual pointer, and it has 2 input actions right now. Well, actually, this is a sneak peek into a little bit in the future. Currently we have pointer select input action, and aiming for a release at 4130 is another input action called pointer zoom, which will it's all about the pinch action for touch. Now, one of our philosophies on UEFN is that we want everything. We want you to make a game and make UI and just build it once and have it work across all input devices that players might be using. Gamepad, mouse, I'm sorry, mouse and keyboard, gamepad, or touch, right? Out of the box, we want your games to work for players no matter what input device they're using. And then we want to give developers agency and power to refine their gameplay if they choose to make improvements specifically for touch or gamepad. So let me show virtual pointer. This is a new feature, and I'm going to add that touch mapping here. And on mouse, I'm running a mouse right now, and you can see that it doesn't look like anything. It's just a mouse. Cool. But I'm going to grab my gamepad now, and I'm going to move the gamepad around. And as you see, I have like a circle pointer, right? And what you can see in the see, I said this is like raw. This is our raw debug project. What you see in the top left, in the top center, under it's called pointer select up here. We're seeing coordinates. So the pointer select input action is returning a vector data, float data that reflects screen coordinates. And when I push the button down, it does a click action or a tap action. It does that pointer select action, and it returns the coordinates at that space. And I can bring this menu up, and I can, as you see, it also works for UI. So I'm driving this little cursor around the UI, and I can remove this, and now I'm back to just being a person running around and jumping and so forth. So now pointer select on gamepad gives you this sort of virtual circle pointer. On mouse, as you see, I switched to mouse just now, and it's just a mouse cursor, so it really looks the same. And now on touch, I'm not running touch simulation mode right now, but I could in UEFN, and that just reflects where you tap is going to come back with the pointer select coordinate data. So basically, the input action pointer select works across all input modes is the main idea. Okay, that was kind of technical, but we're going to get technical. Sorry. So let's put this in action a little bit. What can we do with that? Okay. Well, one cool thing we can do with that is there is a we also provide in the API, diverse API, the ability to trace from your viewport, the 2D viewport, into the world. And with that trace, you can detect 3D objects in the world, and return those and get returns of those in verse. So let me just demonstrate that. So I'm going to hop into this area here, and now I am in pointer select mode. I'm in virtual pointer mode. You see, we're getting pointer select coordinates up there. I'm going to just tap, and well, actually, let me grab my mouse, a bit easier. Wait a minute. All right, let me reset this. The cool part.
The joy of live demos.
Oh,
What
yeah.
could go wrong?
We're supposed to be seeing these rays. There we go. So these red dots, it's actually just really zoomed in. We're drawing rays into the ground. Let me turn this off now so I can walk, and you can see. So what we did is we traced from way up top, right? We traced rays into the ground. So that's a visualization of the deprojection algorithm from the viewport to the 3D world. So those places on the ground was where it intersects, where I clicked before. Okay, so that alone unlocks so much potential in game making from a technical standpoint. All right, let me show some things that you can do with it in gameplay. So these are just some early test things. So let me go ahead and remove that. Okay, so I'm gonna go here and launch some flower pots, and I'm gonna go into virtual pointer mode. And as you see, I'm clicking on flower pots, and they're launching away. I'm not very good at this game. But this was something you really couldn't do before, in any real way. It's really janky, but that's okay. It's meant to just demonstrate the capability, and I can do it on a gamepad as well. And on touch, you would just tap them.
Doing this on gamepad is going to be really well. You got one, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I'm the wrong person. I no longer have those reflexes. Darn it. Oh well. Well, you can see some debug text popping up. It'll say hit the prop. I actually hit one. There we go.
I have to say, one of the key things that's worth noting here is that having been a pro game dev for a really long time, this kind of technology is such a pain to author. So having it come out of the box with UEFN now really is a huge level up for our tooling and also for our creators. There's so much more you can create here without having to have a bunch of engineers sweating for a year to get you the feature set.
No doubt, Sam. I made that demo myself, and I'm not an engineer. And yeah, I couldn't even imagine doing that without these tools that were provided here. This is another take on that. It's a little more refined, maybe not. I don't know. But what's happening here is it's actually looking at gestures. You can see how it says right, left, down under the blue in the blue pointer select area. It's a really rudimentary gesture detection system, but I can swipe and see how it flies in those directions. So we're just simply looking at the last few places where the pointer select coordinates were and just detecting a very rudimentary swipe. This is a very simple demo, but there we go. The idea was to hit that cat, but it's kind of assigning some arbitrary points. But we're doing a camera change to create this view. Let me do this one again because something else I want to show here. But all right, here we go. So where's that cat? There we go. Boom, hit the cat. So also here is I have those two buttons down there. Those are actually buttons, Action 1, Action 2. This is something coming out in 4130 is our goal. And currently you can't do this, but with this release you can. You can click on UI buttons when you're in gameplay mode and it'll respond. So see how it says Action 2 button clicked? So what this means is, for example, you could surround the edges of your screen with buttons like so many mobile games do and so forth. And you can use your virtual pointer, no matter what input mode you're using, to click on those without having to be in UI mode. Traditionally in UEFN, if you want to click on UI buttons, you have to add a widget to the screen and tell it to add to go to UI mode. And in that case, all input goes to UI, not to the world. So with this change, input goes to the world, but it also gives UI a chance to react. So now you can have your little buttons on your screen and have your farm game that I can't wait for people to make, where you collect your wheat and you can choose to sell your wheat by clicking on a button or tapping on a button. That's that one. Okay, this is another really cool one that that one of our designers, Andrew Ruffini, put together today, which is really cool. Appreciate that. I'm going to click on this and failed to click on it. There we go. All right, so we did a camera change down. Now I am zooming out. Okay, like cool, big deal. What's the point of this? What's happening here is that this is actually using a new input action called pointer zoom, which we're targeting 4130. And it is, so on gamepad, I'm using the right stick to zoom. And notice how it's zooming in on the coordinate that it's at. And on mouse and keyboard, which I switched to just now, it maps to the mouse wheel. And you can see where it's zooming in where my mouse cursor is. And on touch, the cool part is it'll zoom in to where you're pinching to zoom, just like you would, just like it's instinctual on a phone, on a touchscreen device. So again, we're trying to keep consistency, parity across all our supported input modes so that players are never stuck. They always have a way to take the action. So it's a pity I don't have a dual, two touch point responsive screen right now to demonstrate. I'm on my monitor, but a pinch to zoom is what is mapped to that pointer zoom input action. And we can click on this to exit this mode. And I have another pointer zoom demo. Paul here put this one together, and then I made it weird by adding some weird things to it. All right, so here we are. I'm on gamepad again, and we are in we're in our virtual pointer mode. So now on a touchscreen device, what you can do is you can just pinch to zoom directly on these three little objects sitting in front of me, and they'll scale up. On gamepad again, it's the right stick, so you have to tap on it in this demo. So I'm just scaling this guy, and I can go to mouse mode, and I can roll the mouse wheel. And again, on touchscreen, I could just pinch to zoom it.
That's so cool to say. I love it.
It is cool. Yeah. So it's really smooth. Oh, you can see in the green box on top, I added that. That's giving the delta value of the pointer zoom input action. That's what you subscribe to do the pinch to zoom action. The pointer zoom input action handles that. So you can make them all giant, and they just overlap. I didn't do any physics here or whatever, even though physics makes everything fun. We all know that. All right. So I can remove this here. I know I have at least one more thing to show here. Okay, so this menu also is demonstrating a new feature in 41. It's a API addition, a verse API addition. It's called the preferred input method. And as you see, it says here, input device in use. This is what's called in verse code, the input method, and it says gamepad. I opened it with gamepad. Let me close this window, and I'll open it up and switch to my mouse and keyboard. I'll open it up now, and it says mouse and keyboard. So this is an example. This is something you couldn't do before in UEFN. So this is a very new feature, and it's detecting effectively what is the input device type that is active at the moment. If I was on a touch screen and I brought up that menu, it would say touch screen. Let me do it on gamepad. There you go. So I'm on gamepad now. You can see the focus traversal happening on the menu. Yeah, so I get to show off this, not too sexy stuff, but just the raw stuff. I think I covered it. I guess let me make this guy like way bigger. And see what happens. Oh yeah. Paul didn't put a limit on it, so
I think I made the limit way too large.
I think I chose a guy that was huge. Now I'm just curious to see if he's gonna show up. There we go. Oh, this is fun now.
Oh wow.
Camera's not like
go
the clone.
home.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
a couple
Yeah.
of questions for you, Derek, if you don't want to answer them. So first are these tools experimental?
Some of them are experimental.
Pretty much all, no?
Not we're gonna cover some stuff today that's not experimental, actually, but I believe everything I talked about now is experimental. We were talking about this before. I think our goal is to make everything publicly available in 42. That's the goal we have. And generally the purpose of experimental is to get feedback from users, from the public, internally as well, and just kick the tires some more, and then we can make it publicly available once all the kinks are worked out. And the worst thing to do is to release something and then have to change it, and that impacts people's projects and their islands and their gameplay. But yep, generally this work is going out experimental first. And I blocked myself out of here, so that's a good was there any other question? I'm sure there's a bunch, but we don't need to go into them. I know you have some time set aside for questions.
Yeah, there's so they asked if it was experimental and currently available. So yes, available but experimental. The other one was, what about handling multiple gestures in parallel? Which I think is probably a bit of a stretch.
Multiple gestures in parallel. I can't speak to that with much confidence right now.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, Derek. So let's add a little bit of context here and talk about, like, Derek showed what's available for now. Since 41, developers have access to pointer select, right? In experimental. So we can consider that a gesture, but not quite really. It's just a very simple action. In 4130, we're hoping to give developers access to pointer zoom, which Derek is using now. That is one that we could actually consider more of like a gesture that maps quite closely onto concepts of mobile, for example, like pinch to zoom, or when we speak of gestures on mobile, we're talking about pinch to zoom, flicking, panning, long pressing, so on and so forth. So touch actions that can be detected and recognized by your mobile OS. So in 4130, you'll have access to one very more complex gesture, being pinch. Going forward, the goal is to expose a lot more of these. So expose flicking and swiping and long press. So to your question, how do you manage these simultaneously? We believe the right way to do this is to leave it up to the developer to manage this in verse code. So you're going to have gestures being shot off, and then it's up to you to decide when one should take priority over the other, because it's tricky, right? You wanna give as much flexibility to the developer as possible, and if we were to define those priorities, it would make it maybe work for you as a developer, but not someone else. So the idea is to allow those gestures to be shot off in parallel, and then it's up to you in verse code to decide which takes precedence. So I hope that answers your question. That being said, that discussion, because we're still at the very beginning of implementing gestures in UEFN, you only really have, since 4130, or hopefully in 4130, you'll have 2 input actions to deal with: tapping, which you can also use to drag, or pinching. So those, for the moment, will be shot off simultaneously, and then it's up to you as a developer to react to them. Things are going to get more complex as there's more gestures that are being exposed, but hopefully it shouldn't be any more difficult than it would be in 4130. I hope that answers your question.
Nice. Yeah, that was a great, thank you, a great response, Paul. Yeah, okay, I'm just messing around now. Embarrass myself with my poor hand-eye coordination. I feel like it's a great time to pass it to Arran, to show something actually cool.
Hey, Arran, do you mind real quickly if I can just comment on virtual pointer real quick while you get your demo ready?
Go for it.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I just want to talk about limitations real quick so people know what to expect when using virtual pointer at the moment in 41, right? So as Derek mentioned, the goal is parity across input mechanisms, right? So as a developer, if you're using keyboard and mouse or a controller, or you're on mobile and you're using touch, we want you as a developer to be able to easily ship across all platforms that use these different input mechanisms, right? So we made a compromise in 41 where it is expected that when you turn on, so when you add the touch mapping or touch input mapping context, or like Derek was showing a while ago in his menu when he was clicking the add virtual pointer, what you as a developer need to understand is that there are going to be a couple of things disabled. So once you enable virtual pointer, we disable movement in the Fortnite player controller, and we disable looking as well. So this is it's an important limitation to keep in mind, and I think it's worth explaining why we chose this. Because different input mechanisms have, you're going to be using them in different ways. So for example, when using virtual pointer, the radial icon that Derek was showing when he was using a controller, that uses your left joystick, and you're going to use the face button to actually trigger input as if you were tapping. So on a controller, that means that we kind of have to sacrifice your movement channel, right? So the common denominator across all 3 input mechanisms is that we had to disable move and look. So when virtual pointer is active, don't expect movement or look to work. You have to remove that input mapping context for move and look to be re-enabled. Now, the idea is parity by default, But then moving forward in FN releases, what we want to do is give developers a lot more flexibility to be able to do things like move and look and tap at the same time. So that's part of the plan. We have to figure it out. We want to make sure that it works well for everyone and that the user experience is comfortable. So I just wanted to make that clear. Once again, all these features that Derek showed for now are all considered experimental, meaning you can't publish an island with them. The goal is to get them ready and good to go for 42. Anything else? Anything else? I think that's it. That's all I want to say.
No, that was a good point because that comes up a lot. You enter virtual pointer mode and your character is frozen. Effectively at the moment. Yep. I think we're gonna pass it to you, I think, Aaron. Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, so sorry to have cut you off there.
No, that's really good
So
information.
demanding. So demanding.
So yeah, when you're ready, Dan.
Let's do it.
So this is a game that we built for a game jam. It was me and Jack Oatman, who's on the Engine Lab team too. We do a lot of messing around in UEFN and experimenting. So whenever new features come online, like the one that we're looking at today, we tend to build games and projects around them to kind of test them out and to see what we can build and see what kind of new features can be made. And this one's really cool because it's the kind of the adding that kind of like touch support and the deprojection support really unlocks a lot of other game genres that before you couldn't do. And one of the things that it allows you to do, which I really like, is to make something that doesn't look anything like Fortnite. Right, not that I don't like Fortnite, but kind of I think that's one of the real tests of UEFN is being able to make something that doesn't in any way look like Fortnite, but you're building it inside of that system. So this is a bowling game that we made and we showcased at Unreal Fest last week. So we've got a few different types of balls. You can pick them up, you can toss them. I'm gonna see if I get a strike now. Oh. Yeah, okay, right. I nailed that first try.
Master of bowling.
And it's really, we tried to polish this up as much as we could. So there's a load of UI stuff, which we've got Derek's team to thank for that. And it's a few different types of balls. So we've got these, kind of regular ones, but then we've also got these explosive ones that if you throw when they impact the ball, they'll go off. And ideally, this is just on a timer. Though we've disabled the timer just so I can keep showing you without having to restart it over and over again. And it allows you to just do this really nice input. So you can pick up the ball, you can move it around, you can kind of like aim your velocity and then throw it and see if you can knock it down. Get those annoying single pins that don't do it, and then the UI will mock you if you take more than 2 balls to knock all of the pins down. So that's the game that we ended up building with it. And yeah, it's very different to I think what you'd normally see in a UEFN project. There's no sign of the player character at all in this, which I really like because it, again, it gives you a lot more variety in what you can build. We could have the player character in this somewhere if we wanted to, but for now we've just got it, kind of tucked away off screen. You can do different camera changes as well, so you can switch to this kind of side view, which Jack loved using and I hated because it's really hard to aim when it's at an angle. So I much prefer the straight on view. And
you could do a screen shake, right? If you right, it unlocks stuff like that.
Yeah, it does a little bit of a transition.
My favorite ball, the angry ball.
The angry exploding ball. Yeah, it's a good one. So yeah, we've got different types of pins, different types of balls. We activate loads of different. We haven't got them enabled, but we've got tons of different audio cues and sound effects that play. A load of UI, a load of sequences that run. So we really tried to put absolutely everything into this. To kind of make it a really polished, finished game experience.
Yeah, I looked at some of the project, the birth code, and I love to see these pieces come together and the dominoes fall after they're lined up, because the system of the ball bouncing and everything, that's just a physics system. Just turn on physics and there you go. And like I was saying before, physics makes things fun, but there's not much verse code there. It's just turn on physics. The virtual pointer is handling the touch point movement.
Mhm.
So it works across all input modes. The UI system you're seeing here, this is just the UI system that you have available in UEFN on live. It's using the the latest patterns, making verse fields. And I was gonna say so earlier I was showing how you could detect, are you using a gamepad, or is a player using a touchscreen, they're using mouse and keyboard. So so the reason I think we released that feature is because when it comes down to it, there's very real differences between these input methods. Like this bowling game, when I was playing it, I think it's best on touchscreen. It's like flick, flick, flick. It's just really fun. You can do it really fast. You have multiple balls going at once. I love this little demo. Mouse is pretty good too. You kind of like mouse flicking, but certainly pushing around a hockey puck for the gamepad mode is not the best way to play it. But you can play it, and that's the point. You're not blocked.
I can do it.
You're probably really good at it. Yeah, it's not bad either, right?
I want to see. I've never seen before.
Maybe you're best on it, actually.
I actually spent a bunch of Unreal Fest trying to master hockey puck bowling.
Yeah.
It's become a skill.
Yeah, but I think again the nice thing is that because we can detect the input now, we can build different experiences for different input types. So there's nothing stopping us from going, hang on a minute, this is a gamepad input. We don't want them being able to do this because obviously it's just not the right way to do it. So then you can just switch to a completely different way of throwing the bowling ball.
You could build it off the analog stick or something like that, and create like a flick bowling. So Arran, I actually had a question. So the translation from the touch input to the sort of physics impulse on the ball, what is the logic you're using to calculate that?
So for that, we are basically tracking the position as we're kind of moving the ball. And then when you release, it accumulates the kind of previous locations to figure out a velocity, and then launches the ball in that velocity. There's a little bit of lag in places, but for the most part, it's good, and especially for this kind of experience, it works really well. So it's quite simplistic again. Like Derek said, like all the balls do is they just have they're just a simple actor with physics, the physics component added and enabled. And then you're just literally picking them up. So it does the detection, and then it just starts moving them to wherever your deprojected location is in the world. And then when you release, it goes, okay, what were the last ones? And then let's launch it in that way. And you get a really nice, compelling, kind of throw.
Can you, by just moving your mouse a little bit and releasing it with very little velocity, does the ball go really slowly?
Yeah, you do like a little
throw, baby throw. Okay, nice. That's cool.
So we do we have destroy the ball after a certain amount of time, because you can get into instances from a gameplay design point where you don't want the ball to just sit there on on the thing forever. So we are trying to like restrict the number of physics objects that are kind of spawned into the world. But the the pins are physics, and the balls are physics, and that's most of the game that you need. The real missing piece for it is just that that input handling to be able to deproject and throw it. Spent a long time just playing this as well. It was one of those games where you just kind of get lost, just like I'm just throwing the balls over and over again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Oh my God, there's so much awesome stuff I'm seeing UEFN developers make right now and post online. I just can't wait for to see more and more of that. So yeah, this was like bowling, but the ball explodes. I mean, there's so many of these simple ideas. I like how mobile games sort of can, Angry Birds like a slingshot, right? I mean, it's these simple ideas open up and you expand on it with layers and layers of gameplay ideas and mechanics. It becomes simple, but it can expand for more fun.
You could
And
have
it's built-
multiple players bowling at once. You could have
Yeah.
other people playing deathmatch in the middle of your bowling alley, getting in the way if you
Yeah.
wanted. You could do all kinds of silly things.
We've built
Yeah.
it pretty modularly as well. So, the ball types are in an array. So you can create different ones quite easily. The metal one and the regular one were really easy because all we did for that is just change the mass on the ball. So the metal balls are just much heavier. And obviously same for the pins as well. But
Yeah.
you can add all of the ones in here, and then we've got an explosive tick. But again, we could very easily change that to just like a struct or a or an enum of different types of ball properties that you could then add onto this. And then we've got a weighting profile that basically works the same as the PCG weighting, and allows you to kind of be like, I want more of this type of ball and make these ones rarer. So the regular bowling ball is going to pop up a lot, but the angry ball only pops up occasionally. And then the same for the pins as well. In the Verse device, we've got the pin types. Again, it's just an array with the weighting. So it's really easy now to kind of like go in and really kind of like fill this out. Even the pins are spawned procedurally. So you could, we're using just the standard, kind of triangular layout, but you could easily have like 30 pins that are kind of like spaced crazily down there, and add loads of different effects and really flesh this out even more than it already is.
Someone should make a
Oh.
bowling roguelike. It's time.
No doubt. Awesome.
Bowling ball X pit.
I want to see we have the ability to put UI widgets into the world in 4120. So I want to see people clone this idea, combat bowling, and make those like cheesy little animations that bowling alleys have on like TV screens right down there. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Did have a quick question here while we were still talking about the bowling side of it. Someone from chat said the pin physics look really nice. Seems to be very bottom heavy, like a pin would be. How did you achieve that?
We didn't really do anything. I would in UE I would have just used the center of mass offset, but that's not an available feature at the moment in UEFN. So we just used the pins as normal. We messed around with the collision model quite a bit to get them to feel right. That's Jack again. He's amazing at that kind of stuff. So he kind of built this beautiful collision mesh for the pins. But we tried a bunch of different variations where we had like a capsule for the main body with a cube underneath to try and kind of like give it some stability and stuff like that. But yeah, that was just a bit of trial and error on the collision shape. I think we just ended up getting a bit lucky with it.
Awesome.
Yeah, real quickly, if you don't mind, Dan, like I think it's important to remember like how important when you think of creating new forms of gameplay, like input is so intrinsically tied with gameplay. It's really so core. So having virtual pointer and touch input being available in UEFN, I feel is one of those like real pivotal moments where developers who are using UEFN can really build stuff that is different, like you're showing off, Arran, and like some other stuff that we're going to show off today. It's input is so core to gameplay, right? So I hope that people are going to be able to experiment and build different kinds of stuff, and especially build gameplay that works well on mobile. Like there's no you can, when you play VR and you're playing with virtual thumbsticks, that's only one way of playing a game on mobile. There's so many other ways to interact with your device and interact with that touchscreen. So hopefully this is going to be a good starting point for people to be able to build things that are really different types of experiences using UEFN and that really play well on mobile. Kind of like what you're used to seeing when playing on other types of games that you might get on your app store of choice. So yeah, it's such a testament. I find that the project that y'all have built in such so little time as well. I feel like you pulled this off so quickly. I think that's also a testament to how powerful UEFN can be. Like just being able to ship something so quickly, of course, with a very talented team, but still, it's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah,
No doubt. I know, like on our tech UI team, Marcio Cornetti put together the UI on that in like hours.
it was under a day. We had all the UI done for it, which was phenomenal. Like we had most of the hooks in place, but still to go through, and they look so nice as well, like the strike effect and the spare, and kind of like the little text bumps at the on either corner look really good, and it looks great on mobile as well. I mean, it's one of those things that it's easy to forget about with UEFN, but we've built this thing, and it's on every device now. Like it's on Android, it's on iOS, it's on PlayStation, it's on Xbox, on Switch, on PC. Like it's just on everything. Kind of basically out of the box. So, I think even though the development environment at the moment is harder than it is in UE, the fact that you've just saved yourself the entire publishing timeline for all of those platforms is pretty special.
And the fact that you don't have to write multiplayer code either, which having written multiplayer code, no one should write multiplayer code. It was a mistake. Let someone else write it for you. So yeah, you could make this bowling game multiplayer and it would just work. But yeah, it's not having to spend months porting your game to every platform is such a huge win. It really is. Having done that in games and then gone, why are we doing this? This was a bad idea.
No doubt. How are we on time, Dan?
We are doing well. We still have I mean, up to another hour and 10 if you folks want to stick around for it. So
I have heads up, I have the RTS demo queued up.
Perfect. Let's
I forget what we were going to switch to next.
Let's take a look.
Sam, were you going to show something?
I was going to briefly show something. While you get the RTS demo queued up, maybe I'll take over the screen share and do something quick and kind of silly. So let me screen share. My editor.
Quick and silly.
Quick and silly is what I do. Okay. So you should be able to see the editor there. This is Combat Bowling once again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch it on a phone. Because one of the real challenges of mobile game development is testing your game on a mobile device like a phone. So what I'm going to do is very quickly show you how to do it. So I have an Android phone logged into my Fortnite account, my professional Fortnite account, not my personal one. I'm not giving you that. And all I need to do is click on these three dots and switch it to connect to platform. And then when I launch session, it will launch session on whatever platform I am logged into with my UEFN developer account that I use to play Fortnite and so on. So I'm going to hit launch session, and then it's going to package up the game. Everything will go fine. What could go wrong live launching during a live stream? It'll be connecting to my edit session. And at that point, I will stop screen sharing and I will flip my phone to the camera and we will go from there. But basically what it's doing is packaging up the project for phone, uploading it to the server. And as you can see, there's a session inspector running. It is launching Combat Bowling and also showing my Discord background, which is fun. And so I'm going to stop screen sharing.
I'll do that.
so you know. And I am going to, here I am on camera. About bowling. So you're gonna have to forgive me. My office.
Wait, hold it again.
My office is a nightmare. I'm gonna turn off the blurred background.
We all get to judge now, Sam.
Judge me for the fact that I
judge.
still haven't unpacked from Unreal Fest.
Oh,
Horror, but
The
yes.
horror.
Combat bowling. This is a edit session on phone. I'm now going to launch it on phone. And you will combat bowling intro sequence.
Amazing.
even did an intro sequence.
So that was
So
pretty
there you
quick,
go.
you know.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you showed that. Because when you publish games in UEFN, they're available on on consoles, on PC, on phones, and it's important as developers know to test them out, on all those platforms so you can be informed if you want to see any issues or want to make tweaks, and now you have the power and agency to make tweaks if you so desire.
One of the things I work with UEFN developers and creators on a regular basis, and one of the main bits of advice as we're moving out of, like first playable into a sort of alpha stage is test on device, whatever, all the platforms. Make sure you can play it on a Switch. See what's going on Switch. Test it on an Android phone. Make sure it is playable in mobile, because often the mobile experience is so different to like your core playing on a gamepad experience that you want to make sure your game is still fun. It's still engaging. It still hits all the points that you want to hit, whether you're playing on a phone or a PC. If you just play on PC, as much as I am a PC gamer, I like to play games on PC. You are really doing your game a disservice, because people play across all platforms. We're everywhere. So make sure that you are meeting all your players where they are and giving them the best experience possible.
Yeah, and keep in mind that as a developer, like you have to, if you want to increase your chances of success as well, you do have to consider hitting all platforms and making sure your game plays well everywhere. And as you mentioned, Sam, like gameplay on mobile is just so different. And keep in mind, like everyone has I shouldn't say everyone, but most people have mobile phones. And Fortnite is back in most areas, back on app stores, and is available in most places. So once again, as Sam said, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you weren't considering how your game plays on something like a mobile device, just because it is such a great way to attain a larger player base. So yeah, definitely test on mobile, definitely test across all platforms. It's super important.
Good segue. So Dan, I have a mobile simulation mode up on my desktop of an RTS game demo.
Let's do it.
There we go. Okay, cool.
Snowball.
Yeah. So this is an internal game. I think this, we've shared this game at in the past publicly. I think Unreal Fest.
There's a talk called Florian and Sam Make an RTS in Fortnite. That is me and the wonderful Florian Dernhan from the Engine Labs team. We got together and we made an RTS in UEFN in about 4 weeks. And what this is the vastly improved version that Florian's been building using the new UI tools. It's before we had to kind of work around the fact that we didn't have proper touch controls, proper virtual pointer, and so on, and now we do, and it's amazing to see my baby looking so good.
Yeah, great. So Sam, speak to this as much as you want. I'll just kind of say what I'm doing. So we made this game demo, and then we released virtual pointer and that stuff we showed before, right? And then that team added it to it. And it's what you need, those tools to make this type of game, really. So let's see here. We have a unit, and I selected it. I was really amazed, Sam, that we implemented this drag and drop rubber banding, I guess it's called sometimes.
Yeah, it's a drag select system. Like if you've ever played like a classic real-time strategy game or even a MOBA, auto battle, or things like that. hold in your mouse button or touch and drag, and you generate basically a box from where you started to where your finger is. When you release, it selects everything within that. And what we do internally is we're keeping track of basically all of the selectable things in the play space, and then using those coordinates you've generated to go, okay, what's inside this and then filtering it by what we're allowed to select, what player does it belong to, and so on.
Yeah.
And then you
Very
select
cool.
all the things.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I'm running this in UEFN in a session in mobile simulation mode. I forget what the menu item is called. But what are you not seeing? You're not seeing all the jump and shoot and stuff and crouch and sprint buttons over here that you normally do. So we're utilizing another feature, and we're going to cover that a little bit later too, a little more. I should talk faster. We actually have a lot of content to cover still. And so those are marked to be hidden, because this game does not need those. They would be in the way. Now we are, keen observers will notice that this auto fire and this marker ping actually could make sense, and the map button, these are still here. So we have plans to enable developers to choose to move and hide those as well in the future. So this will be further cleaned up. We're doing this in phases. On the bottom here, this is really janky still. We did not do a UI pass on this since it was originally made. This wasn't made to be, fancy UI or anything. So we have these magnifying glasses that you can tap on to zoom in and zoom out. But we can definitely improve on these now we have more UI capability.
When your UI artist is me, this is what you get.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So I learned how to do this. So you can click your unit around, and he'll go to where you clicked. Let me zoom in, and then I'm going to capture this point. Oh, also you can virtual pointer. You can click on the screen edges, right, to move the screen. And I'm capturing this building now. And 3, 2, 1. This opens up more capabilities for me. Oops. Did I do it? Yes. Okay. And I click on the building. Wait, how do I do this, Sam?
You select the building, that'll bring up like a menu.
There we go. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So again, this is just like debug style menu, but it's meant to prove a concept. So here I'm spending some resources to buy some units. There's a build queue, 4 or 5 is building them in order. And they're appearing down here. All right, now I get to do the cool thing that Sam was talking about. I'm gonna like multi-select all these guys. All right, now I want to actually make some more, I think, because I was gonna try to.
You may want to capture the resource structure to your top left so you have more resources.
Won't it capture faster if I make more?
No.
Oh.
It should, but someone was a lazy game designer and didn't do that.
Okay. We should blame Florian for that.
I blame Florian because he's asleep right now, so he can't come and smite me. But yeah, if you move over there, it's the same capture mechanic basically.
I'm not sure it's the best thing, but you could do a pinch to zoom in, zoom out now if you wanted to add that here.
We should be doing that. Yeah, I will get on Slack and demand that happens. That's how you make games, kids. You tell other people to do things.
Am I capturing it? Is this where you said to go?
Yeah, you might need to move into the center of the structure.
Pathfinding is a challenge, huh?
So I think or do you have it captured? I think you have it captured, so I think you're good.
I got it.
So yeah, you can now build as many units as you want and move them around the map. I think we have a unit cap of 50 per player.
Okay.
And
cool.
Notice also a nifty tilt shift effect on the environment when you zoom out the camera.
Oh, that's zoomed out all the way, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's really cool. Oh, another unit. Wow, I made it a lot. Okay, cool. I love that multi-select. Okay, so I think I should hand the screen down and start to walk down here.
Yeah, let's walk around the map a bit. There is obviously not another player to fight against.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have swarmed your base and killed you by now because it's an RTS. That's how that goes. But yeah, we built this big explorable map. We have full pathfinding. We have multiple terrain heights. We have multiple buildings to capture.
Here we go. I was capturing. I failed. I got my horde of
Yeah, you can send those guys down there. And so this is using your standard UEFN NPC. We're experimenting with some other techniques for a future project where maybe we don't use the NPC system, but build something more lightweight specifically for RTS. So things to think about when you're developing, especially for mobile, is NPCs are relatively heavy. So if you have a lot of them in your experience, it can affect performance, or it can just affect network behavior a little bit, especially if you have tons. So try maybe building them with Niagara or something like that, making them very lightweight, since you don't need much from an NPC in an RTS context. They just need to be somewhere and know how to attack someone else. They don't need vision and hearing and all that stuff that you have in an FPS or a third-person shooter.
Yeah. Your
Game
pathfinding is
design,
pretty
Sam.
good, actually.
Credit
I
to
might-
the the Fortnite nav mesh team for writing a really nice dynamic nav mesh system. And actually, this is fun. So bridges. If you've ever built an RTS, bridges are a nightmare from a pathfinding perspective because most pathfinding grids are 2D. Building in UEFN, we just added bridges and it worked. Like this is a thing where I texted people I used to work on RTSs with, and like you could hear them weeping tears of blood. But I'm like, yeah, we just put bridges in and it worked. We didn't spend, say, 6 months trying to make the Pathfinder play nice with them. So fun things about working in nice, mature tech.
All right, I'm capturing some
Absolutely.
more stuff. So, and of course, this was on touch. So now I am touch simulation. You're seeing the hockey puck virtual pointer because I'm running it in a simulation on a PC. But if you're running this on your phone, like Sam showed earlier, then you would just be tapping and dragging and so forth. So it should feel. The cool part about it is it not feeling special. It should feel just like an RTS game. But it's implemented within a platform that lets you make any kind of the goal is to make it any kind of game. So that I think is in part the big achievement. All right, let me grab
glad
the
that
new
you-
guys.
I'm glad that you brought that up, right? Because I think there is you could view this and be like, right, this should do that. And the fact that it does and it's that easy is awesome.
Yeah. Where's the bad guys? I can try to. Are they over here, Sam? I forgot. I wanted to try to like win a battle.
So if you go to the sort of
Oh, I'm here. I think I'm here.
So if you go to the southeast, they won't attack you, but they should have a base to this. They should have a base to the southeast.
I think I just destroyed a base. Hey, I crushed the opponent. The day is mine.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, victory is yours.
I think that's yeah, like about what I wanted to show here. So the main idea here is like, look, folks, this is a really traditional RTS experience being implemented using the virtual pointer system. Actually retrofitted to use the virtual pointer system on mobile. It was pretty exciting.
And so there was a question in the comments about building the drag select, and since it was mentioned in passing, basically how we do it is we are tracking where you touch the screen. I'll just talk about it in touch context. Where you touch the screen and then you drag. So then we track where you release the screen. That allows us to draw essentially a 2D box in screen space. We can use the coordinates for the edges of those boxes to deproject that into world space and then just find all the things within those coordinates. It's as simple as that. It's as long as you're tracking all of the things that you want to select in world space, you can then just compare their location to the coordinates of your box and go, are they in the box or not? It's relatively simple. So you should be able to spin this up relatively quickly as a dev, or you can make it way more complex than that if you want. It's entirely up to you.
Awesome. I am going to load another demo, which should be a quick one. Sorry for not giving the heads up, Dan.
No, you're okay.
And I'm opening it now. I need a couple minutes.
Yeah, while you load that, I saw a question here that Sam has already jumped on to answer. So, could you build a mobile-focused RPG system using UEFN?
Oh, 100%. Because all of these systems feed directly into Verse. So RPG systems are basically dealing with numbers, with variables. So you could build a system where everything from your UI for inventory to your combat system to everything is all touch-based. It's all just clicking on icons. That feeds directly into Verse. You can just build the gameplay logic directly in Verse for all of that. And tie it, you can use devices like you could use the stat device, things like that, to build custom player stats that you then interact with the UI using Verse as you see fit. But yeah, it's what I like about this system is because it's genericized, we're not being prescriptive about how you use it. You can just go, this goes to what Paul said earlier. We're not telling you how to use the tools. We're just giving you the tools and it feeds directly into Verse. And it doesn't have to be complicated Verse at all. You don't have to be an engineer to write the kind of code you'd need for an RPG. You just need to build the UI that you want and have it set up. I think the thing for me that's exciting is you can build a really nice inventory with the virtual pointer now. You can build your menus, all of that, rather than having to do the thing where you're using a joystick to kind of hop around, not knowing what you're going to select next. You can use the virtual pointer and have it just work, and then it works on tap, it works on joystick, it works on mouse and keyboard equally well. But yeah, that would be my answer to that. You just need to work out what gameplay you want. The tools are all there.
I had a couple other questions here. One of them is, will there be a way to detect the virtual pointer location without clicking so we can do hover actions on world objects?
We're talking that gap is recognized. And so it is something that we are investigating. Our goal is to make it as easy as possible and as standard as a workflow as possible to create game experiences and to support mobile style experiences. And so I think there's a gap there right now. It's not something we have. We're aware and want to solve it.
Yeah. And the tricky thing to know there is that like hovering, because feature parity across all these three input mechanisms is so important, hovering really only makes sense if you're using a mouse or if you're using virtual pointer via your controller, right? Because it's not, if you're holding your finger on screen to do a hover, that's really just a tap it's not really a hover. So it's a simple, it's a conversation we're having, and we just have to keep in mind that feature parity is important, but also extensibility is also just as important. So we have to find that sweet spot where it just works for everyone. But it's been requested quite a bit since we released this in 41. So we're definitely going to take a look at it.
It is important to remember that, though, like when you are making a game, I mean, it's one of the advantages of UEFN, right? When you build it, it deploys everywhere. That can also be a bit of a disadvantage as well if you want to build a very specific type of game. But my advice to you is if you are building for UEFN, you should try and build an experience that works across all platforms. And as Paul said, with hover, that is not something that you can just do in mobile, right? You are either touching the screen or you are not touching the screen. So if you are building with that in mind, you need to think really hard about how that's going to work on a mobile device, because it is going to be on a mobile device whether you like it or not. And people will play it, and ideally you want those people who play your games to have a good experience.
Yep. Thank you, Aaron. That is the goal. That's sort of the UX designer, challenge nightmare is to support that. Like earlier, I was saying the different input methods, mouse, keyboard, gamepad, touch. There's real differences. And interaction designers know this well. And when you're working games on Fortnite, you have to think about building your experiences on all three.
And it's worth considering that you may need a different UI for different platforms. Maybe on mobile, you have a lot of on-screen icons, you have a lot of like it's all touch and tap and virtual pointer. But then when you're playing on, say, a console, maybe you don't have any of that and it's all direct control of the player character. It's entirely up to you, but you should think about what user experience works for each sort of group of player because they all have different sets of expectations. You might even want a different camera on different platforms. There's a lot of different sort of considerations there, but it's usually not one size fits all as much as let's build a really good core experience and then tailor it for each platform as we need to.
Absolutely. You can share my screen again, I think, Dan.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And so by default, your UI should work across all input modes. Certainly, we don't want to make it so you have to do that. But yeah, like Sam was saying, you have choice now if you want to make differences. You can build your UI different ways. Okay, I am sharing. Wait, sorry, was someone to say something? I didn't mean to cut. Okay, cool. So, all right, you got me on a live stream, so I'm gonna talk about UI for a second. No, I'm just kidding. But this is one of our most recent UI demos, and it's really just sort of a UI front end. I'm gonna show the virtual pointer using UI. That's the goal. But let me just kind of show you how you would use it on a mouse or on a gamepad. Again, the idea here is that like this UI is just normal. It's like what you should expect in a game. I'm using gamepad right now. This is like a main menu, like any game might have, right? Going up and down. Again, I think the art's really nice and all, but there's like
your team just makes every game project we make look so much better.
UI goes a long way, and it is complicated. And there's a lot of the systems in UEFN. There's fewer systems to UI than in UE, for example, fewer options. But I think the goal here is to demonstrate you can do high quality UI using pretty standard industry workflows. There's gaps and improvements to make still, but there's nothing magic or internal going on here. This is just but there's a talented artist who worked on this, and talented tech designers. But you could do this too. On the art side, there's a lot of resources for art. But I'm just I'm using a mouse now to click on these things, right? I wasn't going to talk about UI here. I just wanted to show it, right? And then there's also this screen. Whoops, sorry. There's this screen here where there's some cool tiles you can click on. And then there's this screen. I know I'm going fast. There's this screen here where you can click on cars, and there's this awesome camera stuff, right? You can see how I can rotate this camera around. And again, this is not a real game. This is just a UI demo. There is a really cool gameplay with this, but it's not fleshed out by any means. Yeah, I can go back. Okay, cool. So here's some UI, and let's turn on virtual pointer. We added this little screen. All this does is this literally just pushes the touch mapping context in verse code. And now I'm on my gamepad again. I get my little hockey puck. And that's when I show a couple things here, right? So I can move to the back screen. I can also use the back input action to back up, which is really nice, which is what you expect in the game these days. So it's good to have these standards now. So I can move my cursor around, my pointer around, and as you see, it just works. So you have a choice as a developer. You can choose to use this virtual pointer for UI if you want. You could also turn it off when you're in UI mode, and that means players would have the focus traversal, system to move their focus around. I just wanted to show like kind of how it works like normal. We are actually doing a little bit of input device detection here. So that the details panel on the right, it updates differently based on are you gamepad, mouse, or touch, just to make it a little smoother. On gamepad, you want to just select it and it updates. On touch, you need to tap it, right? You just have to. And here is a good place to show. There's one thing I want to talk about here. This is a minor thing, but as you move the cursor, the pointer around, it accelerates in speed, just for convenience. We want to add user settings, player settings, to let them choose some of these options, how much acceleration and so forth. That's not in yet. but that is on the roadmap. It is planned. And as I move over that play button, watch how it slows down. See? It slows down actually. So there's friction. I'll go through these buttons and it'll go fast and slow. It's kind of hard to see, probably. I'm not sure. But so that's to make it easier to not, move past the button really fast. These are disabled, so the hockey puck goes right over them.
This is so slick, I have to say.
Yeah. I was gonna say
Very
those are the
cool.
little details that go a long way.
Yeah,
They just
it
make
is.
it feel tactile, right? Like you feel like, oh, I'm over a button because of that like friction and things like that. It really
It's expected. These
Mhm.
are things that are proven in the game through games now, through interaction design as, sort of must-haves for usability. And so it's you just need to have them.
Derek, I hadn't noticed that before. Out of curiosity, do you have to implement that as a developer, or is it just taken
No.
into account when you're using virtual pointer?
You actually, at this moment, it just works. And that's the
It just
general
works.
intention,
Got
to
it.
make it just work. But we also want to give you the capability to tune it or to do
Got it.
your own thing if needed.
Cool.
So I think we'd like to expand on it in those ways. There's also giving the player agency. I think it's up to the player to say, "Oh, I don't want this feature. Thank you, but I'd rather just go really fast." They have good reflexes. So I think these are good things to add to the player for the player settings as well. These things are not in
In the
yet.
same,
Yeah.
in the same way, you could have given, like, as a developer, you can give that same agency to players to decide whether they even want to use virtual pointer or not, right? Like the way
Yeah.
you're doing it now, it's up to the developer to say, listen, I want to really use this, or I'll leave you as a player get to choose what you want to use, right?
Yes, that's a good segue. And again, sorry, Dan, I didn't tell you to turn my camera off. We're streaming. I was gonna segue to another project. So let me do that now. It'll take a couple minutes. Sorry.
Perfect. We have a bunch of questions here. We can kind of speed run through real quick while you load that up. One of them is it planned to allow us to get to the pointer location without requiring a click?
That was asked, I think, just before.
Was it? Sorry.
And
Yeah.
we would like to do that. We're trying to figure it out, see what's possible and what's the best way to do it.
Another question we had was any plans to allow virtual pointer to work independently from menu navigation UI related. This is especially for controllers.
So do you think that's asking I can move around the virtual pointer, but maybe like the D-pad can move menu options? Is that what that is? That's the question?
That feels
It feels like
reasonable
it,
to me,
yeah.
yeah.
Man, oh man. That's tricky because we wanted to keep things simple in a way, and just have like that gets into a world of multiple pointers, basically.
Yeah.
So I can't I don't have a great answer for that. It's a cool idea. Sounds really cool. Something to think about. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, because under the hood, it's basically just the mouse, right? Like when you move with the D-pad, it's just moving the mouse to the position of the next target button, but you just don't see the mouse because it's hidden. And the pointer is essentially the mouse. So for you to have two separate things, it would basically be two separate mouse inputs, which we don't support.
That's extremely advanced UI design. So,
Yeah, and you'd
hopefully
also have to
we'll
be
get
able to
that.
handle, what if the pointer is hovering over the same button as the second input, and stuff like that. It does get
What takes priority?
It gets very complicated very quickly.
When you design things like that in a traditional gaming environment, that's when your UI devs are like, what are you doing to me? Could you not do that to me?
Yeah, I've tried to do that.
What
Me
you
too.
could do is your input action should work, so you can change tabs.
Mhm.
I used the back button to back out of menus just now when I was in virtual pointer mode. So there's some middle ground. I'm
Quick-
still opening it.
No, actually, quickly with that one, we had a question was, is that back input action available now? Is that currently?
It is. You can actually search on the Epic developer forums. I forget the right name for that, Dan, but I wrote a little I did a post about how to go implement the UI back input action, which is super important for players, because different platforms, such as Nintendo and PlayStation and so forth, have different mappings on their gamepads for what is the standard back button, and players learn this. It's like a basics. It's a basic like physics of the universe of PlayStation or Nintendo is that, oh, this is the button that just goes back always. You want that to always work. So
Yeah.
this feature allows that to happen.
Silly question regarding that, Derek. Like as a developer, does that mean that do you can actually draw in UI the correct icon given which platform you're playing on, or is it just
It does that already, actually, and it's
Wow,
automatic.
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
What you can't do really is customize the icon right now.
Okay.
There's a few reasons on that. In part, there's standards across platforms. For what those icons must be. But that is a request that we have heard a lot.
Okay.
Couple other questions here. We're getting some really in the weeds ones, which we love. So, are there plans to add on pressed / on released to UMG buttons instead of just on clicked?
On press, on release. There is not a plan for that at the moment. It's good feedback. What we have at the moment is the click event, and then we have on highlight and on unhighlight event in UMG and in verse. And what highlight does is it's the equivalent of sort of like focus selection across all input modes. So on gamepad, when the default is like focus traversal, highlight event is when that button, tile, whatever is focused, has an outline around it, and so forth. For mouse, it's when the mouse is hovering on it. And on touch is actually a short hold. We'll put it in focus, basically. And that's the default behavior on that. So how would you handle on what was the request on click? Or rather,
yeah, it was on pressed and on released.
On released. Yeah, there's probably not a great way to handle that. So I think that's good feedback. Thank you. And it's something that we have to we'll look at to see if it's feasible.
Awesome. Another question we have is, will it support the response gyroscopic sensors of the touch devices?
Yeah, so I could take this one. So coming back to an initial statement that we made earlier in the stream, what's tricky is we can give developers access to gyro and accelerometer data, and that works for mobile. But then how do you make that work for a game that's running when you're playing keyboard and mouse or with a controller, right? That's the tricky part. So we're coming back to this question of parity between input mechanisms. So for now, the gyro and accelerometer are not accessible via virtual pointer. The idea, like pie in the sky, at a later point in a later release in FN and UEFN, it would be great if we can get it to a point where, as a developer, you have a lot more control over how like you'd be able to define your own input mapping context yourself and then be able to really customize this. So we're not saying this is how you should be using your cursor or select or pinch. You as a developer have full control over this. So once we discuss this further and we figure out the right way to make it work for everyone, it'll be something that we consider implementing.
Another question we had here is, in UEFN, are gestures captured at every tick, or do we have some way to optimize that, for example, through interpolation, or does that end up being more expensive?
So so there's a couple ways to look at that. In virtual pointer and pointer select right now, the touch mapping and pointer select input action, the touch mapping input mapping context, and the pointer select input action right now, which returns the screen coordinates. That is giving raw tools. And earlier I was demonstrating some, it said like left or right and top to bottom and so forth. It was detecting like quote unquote like swipe gestures, but that was just verse code being clever in capturing points in space in the coordinates and over time and saying, oh, that was a right swipe. So that's really just gameplay code in that case. And that is doable. That is not the end game. The goal is not to just make developers have to do complicated math to detect those things. Pointer zoom returns like the zoom level. There is so the desire is to make it easier.
Yeah, and maybe I can add real quickly to that. When we talk about like mobile gestures, so we think of pinch or flick or these different gestures that are being recognized at an OS level, so by iOS or Android. The engine itself is processing input every frame, but we're outside of tick. So the actual in 41.30, hopefully, the first real gesture will be enabled, and that would be pinch. And that gesture is being recognized at all times during gameplay by the OS. And then you as a developer are hooking into that gesture through the different verse APIs that you have access to, and those verse APIs are actually using enhanced input under the hood. So you shouldn't have any performance concerns about this being processed every frame, but you do have to be concerned about if, for example, you're doing expensive work on tick in your verse code. That's something you should be a little bit more concerned about. But yeah, a little going down the rabbit hole, the technical rabbit hole, that those gestures are being processed every frame by the operating system.
Just to add to that as well, like that's what you want, right? Like input needs to be incredibly responsive and updates. So you almost always want that to be an updated thing. The only downside is that verse is obviously operating on the server, not the client. So while your input is operating very fast, what verse does with it is not. That's limited. So you can get to some situations where while your input is going to be immediate, the way that verse then processes it is going to be slower. So you can still get things like stepping happening where the kind of your movement is going to be smooth, but the actual frames that verse is picking up on are more stepped. So just keep that in mind.
Other questions we had here is what options do we have for constraining actions? Some kind of bounding box, 2D, 3D, for example. Is it all the same as in UE5?
I want to maybe understand. I think I know what that question is, but maybe not. But
We did it in combat bowling.
Okay.
So we had a play space that the user could operate on, and that was really simple. We just created a volume space, and then Verse would basically, when it did the deprojection, it would go, I'm only allowed to operate within this area. And then at that point, you can decide what you want to do on the gameplay side to handle that. So for us, we just clamped it. So basically, you couldn't operate outside of this square in the game world, and anything outside of that would just get to the nearest point. But you could also have it so that the ball would get dropped if you went outside of that space. I wouldn't do that because that would be bad gameplay, but you could, you could do that. So yeah, you can define playable spaces and playable regions in 3D with deprojection. I think you can do the same thing with 2D spaces as well.
Yeah, so I think the volume device is definitely your friend there. I don't know if folks were also watching at the very beginning where Derek was showing off like the fundamentals of like jumping into this little corral, this fenced off corral, and then suddenly the camera went above. That was the same sort of situation where you have a volume device that defines like what verse code gets called then. So yeah, you definitely have options there.
Interestingly, at the moment, Verse can't get the bounds of a device volume. But it's a very easy workaround because the Verse device volume has a standard unit size, and then you scale it, and then you can get the scale. So you can always get the volume. Just when you're writing the Verse code, you won't be able to get the actual proper bounds. You have to get the standard bound size and then just get the scale to get that to work.
It actually also answers another question I saw come up, which is it possible to have multiple input or camera styles based within a single experience? Which is yes, you can change at any point. That's just in your gameplay logic. Switch it out whenever you need it. If you want to switch to a top-down camera and suddenly have a full touch UI, you can. It's just purely how you author your content.
Awesome. All right. Looking at time and stuff, I skipped past something, but that's okay. I can speak to it just really briefly. One thing available in 41.0, so recent release, was developers can use a HUD controller device to move to reposition the touchscreen controls that players see in their game. So this is because if you're making your game, and it could be anything, right? You don't want to have to design your HUD around the touchscreen layout. So a developer could choose where to put touchscreen buttons that fits their game. And you could make left-hand, right-hand versions or any number of versions of touchscreen control layouts, and then activate them in your gameplay code as needed. In future releases, ideally we're targeting something before 42. We're going to expand the number of we're going to expand what touchscreen controls developers have control over. In this first release, it's things like jump and crouch and sprint and aim down sights and fire. Future releases, like I mentioned before, you can move the map ping, the map button, the auto fire button. Also, the vehicle controls, which is a lot of those actually, will provide the ability to move those. That demo is not super compelling, but it's something that I wanted to share. That being said, I have a hotbar demo up, Dan, that I think I'm ready to switch to.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I'll probably call it a quick bar usually because that's what I normally call it. But I'm not sure what the community, you chime in. What's the right word? I don't know. So what we're looking at here is this is just another, demo, right? It's not a real game or anything. I think it looks really nice, but this is a purely made from scratch hotbar in a UEFN project. So what you can do right now in UEFN is you can use the HUD controller device to actually reposition and even replace the standard shooter hotbar that you get, that you sort of inherit in UEFN. So you can already, a year ago we released that capability, over a year ago, where you can make a vertical one, you can make it look like anything. If you look at the different IP releases we've done, we make some HUDs for those. So Star Wars has one most recently. Walking Dead has one that we made. But those hotbars were skinning per se, or just you're overriding with your own widget the standard shooter one. What we're looking at here is a purely from scratch, purely from verse. It does not use the shooter hotbar whatsoever. So it's very whimsically themed visually here, and I want to show how it works across 3 input modes. I'll need to switch to touch to show that one, but I have a video to fall back. But this is up to 8 slots, and so I can show the UMG as well. But here, there's 2 ways to do this. You can hit Shift, and you can jump to the slot directly. So this is a quick way to do it, for example. This is also configured to use the mouse wheel. I think I might have configured it to hide. No, I didn't. That's fine. So also the mouse wheel can be used to roll through these directly, which is a expectation, I think, a lot of times for a hotbar like this.
If you're building an RPG, say.
Yeah. It's up to 8 slots. Why 8 slots? Because what we've done is expose to UMG. I'll show this in a second. 8 input actions they're called hotbar slot 1 through 8. And on touch, you can just tap that directly, just touch the screen. And that's the selection action, which is, of course, I think, the expected behavior by players. Let me switch to gamepad now again. And so now I'm on gamepad. And now in this mode, I am just using the bumpers to cycle through the options. And I think I set it up here where, yeah, here we go. You can also do a quick select for gamepad. So I'm going to hold down the RB and I'm going to push a Y, right? So this is the quick select. Each of the 8 slots is mapped to a button on the gamepad, the D-pad, and then the 4 face buttons. And you can jump to it directly. Or you could choose to, I think this toggles it, is what I did here. Yeah, or you could choose to just let the player cycle through it and not have the ability to directly map. And then this is the mouse and keyboard again. So this is a pretty foundational piece of gameplay mechanic, UI mechanic. So it's great to be able to release this, and the important part for touch is that you can just tap on it directly. All right, Dan, let me reload this for touch, and I can demonstrate tapping on the slots. So I just need to restart it in touchscreen simulation mode.
No worries.
And you can talk amongst yourselves.
We actually just had a question here talking about the hot bar, which was with the hotbar slots, it requires hitting Shift and the number. Is there a way to do it with just the number input?
At the moment, no. It is a input action, which is tied to that specifically right now. The reason is that would clash with the direct those key bindings are used by the default hotbar that runs in UEFN.
Another question we had here is, why is it limited to 8 quick bar trigger input actions?
Earlier, we talked about you make the game and it runs on all platforms. And that's one of the goals of a platform like UEFN, to make it easy to create something that runs, for a broad array of players, audiences. They're on their phone, they're on a console platform, they're on their PC, it just works. So at the moment, it's the gamepad that brings some limitations. There's only so many buttons left. I think what we have free for things like VR is like, you don't want to do like hold down both triggers, both bumpers, and shake the controller. There's only so many buttons that are left, and so at the moment we're just utilizing something as sort of simple and intuitive as possible. So that's the D-pad up, down, left, right, and the 4 face buttons along with the modifier key. In theory, it'd be possible to expand on those. You get into things like hold down right button and left click stick, things like that.
Awesome. I'm
almost there, but yeah, keep stalling, Dan.
No, I'm actually, my browser has decided to sign me out, so I have to re-sign in. So actually give me a second. If anybody else has a question while I fix my backend, that would be great.
I love doing it live.
Oh yeah. Nothing ever goes wrong. Nothing ever goes wrong.
Are you back in, Dan? Good to go.
Yeah, unless you have a different question. I was just looking at one here.
I was just gonna vamp.
No, yeah, it's one of the questions we have is, do we have any sanitization functions to smooth out finger tremor?
I mean, yeah, you do that in verse. You can do interpolation. You can do averaging. Kind of the verse API just exposes the current position. So once you've got that, you can do whatever you want with it.
I recommend not just working with raw data, but doing stuff like interpolation with it, so you can get a more predictable response. Because touchscreen, obviously, as the person said, fingers are wobbly. Fingers do things you don't expect, and you want to give the player what they think they're doing, not what they're actually doing.
And you've got a bunch of different ways you can deproject into the world as well. So you can do different types of tracing. You can do different types of like cone projects and stuff like that. So
I feel like the question was, do we provide a way to do that? I think our answer was, you can do it through verse code. And I think it's a really good question, and in something that we should take back and see if there's any system-wide feature that we can provide for that.
Another question we had is, are the quick bar input trigger definitions given and fixed?
Yes.
Easy.
Yes. Next
simple.
question.
Yes.
No, they are. They're the input actions for the hotbar quickbar is hotbar slot 1 through 8. So they're exposed to UMG. Here actually, let me. Dan, I think actually we're good to share my screen again. I can answer this. Here, I have it running in our touch mode, simulation mode again here. But let me look at the UMG, because that's a good segue. Where did I put it? Widgets. See how organized that is? This is how you do it, folks, right? Got material functions, material instances, materials, textures, widgets. Obviously, this is a project I didn't make because it's so well organized. All right. So let me open up. There's 2 main widgets here. I love to get technical. So this is our pretty awesome. Look at that. Look at that. Like the waviness. That's so nice, right? That's fun. So this is the hotbar widget, and then we also have the hotbar item. So that this just instances eight of those, right? So I have to remind myself where this is set up. So it's set up right. Wait, actually, probably click right here. So let's see here. Doing it live, so talking through it. What we're doing here is we're passing in 3 things from the gameplay in burst gameplay into this widget. We're passing, are you selected? What is your art? And we're playing animation on it when you select something. So you can click on this to see this animation happen. And actually, it's actually pretty nice. It's really nice. So that's happening on the tile. And I'm not going to get into the details of this right now because it's not meant to be that a UI centric live stream, but there are videos that we've shared that do go through bindings, and our online docs speak to how to hook up these data bindings in UMG. But let me show how this is hooked up. So we have a button here. Here we go. Slot button 01. That's his first one. This is a new feature added to it. And this is a custom button. So if you go up here and you type custom, you'll see custom button. A custom button has a fully overrideable hierarchy in the tree here. So you can just replace its default gray box with whatever you want. In this case, we replaced it with an overlay. We put that item, we put this guy right in there, right? And there's other stuff in here too. Just to create, we have these key binds that we show down here. So, but the root of each of these slots is a custom button. This one's called slot button 1. So here's a details panel for a custom button right now, and it has a property now called triggering input action. And in this list here, these are the new ones exposed: input action, IA, input action, custom hotbar slot 1. So there's through 8, and so these are available in UMG. They're not available in Verse right now. So the way that you use it, and this is explained in recent documentation, is you create a data binding for it. So let me go find that. Click event. There's a lot of data bindings in this, so here we go. Okay, so this is where I wanted to get to. So slot button 1, that's this guy right here. You go to it and you say on click event. What we're doing is we're firing a verse field event for slot 1 clicked. So we added a verse field of type event. And when this button gets clicked, we fire this verse event. The verse variable side here is what's exposed into verse from this widget. What is making that click event happen? Maybe is the question, right? And the answer is that input action. So when this input action fires, it fires a click event, and that causes this binding to fire over here, and then verse can respond. Then you respond to it from verse. So what this means is basically, if I click on a tile here, that is calling that input action and firing it. Also, I'm using my keyboard now. I'm doing like shift 2, right? Shift 3. So that's also firing the click event, and that's causing that chain of events to happen so that you can respond to it in verse. So that's the workflow, and that's also why we're limited to 8 right there. But okay, so we're in touch now, and let me see if I can make this bigger. Does that work? All right, I don't want to dilly-dally on that. But this is the touch simulation mode. So you have to imagine my monitor is not touchscreen. If it was, it would work. But we're going to simulate touch with the mouse cursor. So tapping on a slot is selecting it. So, but as you see, I'm indeed running on mobile because I'm using the little mobile controls to walk around, and the right side stick is the look side, and it's an invisible control. But you can just tap on this hotbar to select. So it doesn't have to be all in a row horizontally. It could be vertical. You could put 2 things here, 2 things there, you know, go nuts. It doesn't need to even be for a hotbar, you know, per se. It could be really anything. If you're making a tycoon game, it could be a mode select or something. But what I'm simulating here or showing here is that you can tap on these buttons. You can tap on it while you're in gameplay mode. And that is part of the new feature. That was something you couldn't do before.
That is very cool. What to say? It's like we're really unlocking the ability to build entirely different forms of UI without being as constrained by what Fortnite does. It's very awesome.
And some of the UIs cleaned up on touch here in this demo. We didn't need, you know, some things, so we removed them with the developer layout control feature I described earlier. Gosh, that's it for this one. Sorry that took so long to load.
No, you're okay. Do we have any other things we wanted to demo? Or
That's what I got.
Got 4 human minutes. What are we gonna
Perfect.
do?
yes, so that was going to be my other question is, are you guys got a hard out here? Do a couple lightning round questions real quick.
Sure, let's do it.
Perfect. One of the questions we had here was, will we get the ability to compose custom input mappings even from curated lists of keybinds?
Yeah, I can take that one real quick. At the moment, that can't be done. But we're looking into it. It'll take some time. We need to get it right. But that would be lovely. So yeah, something that we know about, we hear you on. So just keep your eyes peeled, and hopefully in a later release of FN, you'll have access to that.
Another question we had was, will we get specific platform mapping like PlayStation, Xbox, etc.? And what about analogic R3 and L3 input for triggering and move?
Yeah, and that's pretty much a very similar answer there. So we would love it to be able to expose more custom controls. For now, that's not possible. You have to work with the different input mapping contexts that you have access to, that we give access to, where you can enable those through verse code, enable or disable them through verse code. But this, once again, something that we're looking into, and we don't. I don't want to speak to the plan quite yet, but yeah, we want to bring. Want to give y'all more access to that. Just have to figure out the right way to get it done.
Awesome. Just scrubbing through a few of these here. One of the questions we got is a pretty specific, but I think I've seen it asked a few different times here, so hopefully we can answer it. Why can custom button only fire an input action on a touch screen UI_input_node.none, but there's no way to fire a dedicated verse event field through on-clicked binding? Might be beyond the scope of this, but I figured we'd ask it anyways.
It's a good question. It's a little bit beyond right now. But let's capture that and try to address it. It's same. It's come up recently at Unreal Fest. I talked to some developers about the same question.
Another one we had here is a square in screen space is not a rectangular square in projected world space, right? How do you handle non-rectangular unit selection? This is going back to the RTS example we had before.
As in selecting it, well, you actually, when we built the RTS originally, we selected in a circle. where we were just using a basic radius, where it's like, this is the center of our selection point. This is this is the, radius of the circle. What is in that space? What is within that distance? Basically, the more complex your selection shape is, the more complex your math is. So if you want to do some crazy trapezoid, go wild, but just be ready to do a lot of sweaty math, which I don't want to do. Personally, I find also generally the simpler your selection shape is, the easier it is for your end users to understand.
Yeah. One more quick one here before we wrap up. Will they ever reflect the child widgets, like when your slots, so that we don't need to add a verse field for every single verse field for every single slot? Trying to translate that one.
Yeah, it is definitely something we want to improve. And like so many things, that is a balance between investing in improving some of the tools that are there right now, against the next generation of tools that we're making. So UEFN launched with button, with like button loud and quiet and regular, and not much more for UI. So these tools are constantly evolving, and the idea of arrays in verse fields and making arrays of custom classes in verse fields is important, and it's something that is on the roadmap and being tracked, and it's a matter of fitting it into our next gen tools, or maybe taking some time away and delaying the release of some next gen tools to try to fix it in some of the existing tools, and that's always a tough call.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you folks not only taking the time to join us today, but also on a special Friday stream, which is right at the end of the week. And I'm sure you have plenty of things that you need to wrap up in the next hour before you head out for the weekend. But I appreciate you taking the time to come out here and talk to us and show off these cool tools and features. Well, with that, folks, that is going to wrap up today's Creating in Fortnite. Again, a huge thank you to our wonderful guests for today, and a huge thank you to you all for watching as well. If you have come through partway through and would like to rewatch a section, or would just like to rewatch a section for any reason, no worries. We post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on both our Twitch and YouTube channels. We will be out for the next 2 weeks. Epic is going on break, so we won't have any live streams during that period, but please come back in July, because we have a lot of things moving behind the scenes that we're really excited to share with you folks. Again, one last huge thank you to all of you for joining us today, and everybody for watching, and we will see you guys in July. Take care, everybody.